Thank you. At this time, I'd like to welcome our new member, Director Holt, to the Finance Committee, and understand from the chairman that there will be a formal introduction at the regular board meeting. So, welcome. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the December 13, 2018 meeting? Director Lewis, second by Director Melvin. Roll call.
Director Colson? Yes. Director Groven? Yes. Director Holt?
Abstain.
Director Kotel?
Aye.
Director Lewis?
Yes.
Director Melvin?
Yes.
Director Triani?
Aye.
Director McGallis?
Aye.
7 ayes and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Item 3A is the resolution certifying the financial results for the fourth quarter of 2018. B.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Here with me also is Doug Anderson. He is our budget manager of our division. So today we're going to review the unaudited year-end financial results, which are subject to board certification. The service board's financial results through the fourth quarter were good. System ridership finished slightly above budget. Operating revenue was unfavorable, but was more than offset by the solid expense performance. The regional recovery ratio finished the year almost 1 point above budget at 52.6%. So at the end of the presentation, I will be recommending that the board certify that the results of operations for each service board and the region as a whole are in substantial accordance with the adopted 2018 budget. So let's look at system ridership. Through December, it was 0.6% above budget, as shown by the orange bars on the chart. Only 2 months of the year experienced gains from 2017, April and October, and the overall ridership decline for 2018 was 2.5%. This was expected due to fare increases implemented by the service boards and the national trends that you've heard about in some of the prior presentations. Looking at the summary table, CTA and PACE ADA reported favorable to budget ridership, while Metro and PACE Suburban Service reported unfavorable results, with the total system ridership slightly above budget, as I noted earlier, and no red highlights in the section, which holds the rest of the results close to budget. Now we're going to look at operating revenue. Operating revenue was $6.8 million, or 0.6% unfavorable to budget. The shortfall is due primarily to the lower level of reduced fare reimbursement from the state. When you look at PACE Suburban Service, it had the most substantial operating revenue shortfall, highlighted in red, due to lagging fare revenue and, again, the reduced fare reimbursement funding. Looking at ADA paratransit operating revenue, it was 7.8% favorable, and that's highlighted in light blue due to favorable fare and ancillary revenue. Now, looking at public funding, the dashboard shows a favorable variance from budget of 0.4% for the region. Sales tax receipts continue to show strength, with the latest results November about 3.3% higher than 2017, but that is again prior to the 1.5% state surcharge. When you look at the RET, or the real estate transfer tax, it is favorable to budget by 5% for the year. Looking at the quarterly results, which we also include in this chart, this shows year-to-date sales tax growth by merchant category. In this case, through the third quarter of 2018, this is the latest available data. The number in parentheses at the bottom of the chart indicates the size rank of the category in terms of total sales tax receipts. The overall sales tax growth rate is shown in the orange line is 4.2%, led by the automotive and filling stations category. Also our largest contributor at 7.1% growth due to the higher gas prices this year. In total, year-to-date public funding is now $6.4 million, favorable to 2018 budget. This is assuming the December sales tax results are on budget, but we expect that they may be a little bit higher. System-wide operating expenses through December were $58 million, or 2.1% favorable to budget, with all service boards reporting favorable results. PACE Suburban Service had a 5.9 favorable to budget expense performance, highlighted in light blue due to its strong results in operations and administration, insurance, and claims. PACE ADA Paratransit had a 3% variance, also highlighted, driven by their favorable purchase transportation results. Let's look at fuel expenses. Fuel expenses moderated somewhat in the fourth quarter with a total of unfavorable variance of $8.5 million or 8.8%, while this is an improvement from the third quarter result, which was 10.1% unfavorable. Relative to budget, CTA benefited from locking prices in advance, while Metro and Pace experienced unfavorable fuel results, which were more than offset by the favorable results in other expense categories. Each of the service boards has treated them differently in the past, and Metro is looking at locking in some more of their fuel prices. Let's look at the regional level. Favorable operating expenses and public funding more than offset the unfavorable operating revenue, which produced a system-wide result, which was $57.6 million favorable to budget, a $13.4 million improvement over last month. Metro, Pace, Suburban Service, and ADA Paratransit each had a net result variance in excess of 3% due to good expense performance. Now let's look at recovery ratios. During the fourth quarter, the regional recovery ratio strengthened above the required 50% level and is expected to end the year at 52.6%, favorable to budget by 0.9 percentage points. As you know, we've looked at that closely all year, concerned that it was a little tight, but they were able to exceed it, actually. So looking at the fare recovery ratio, there are different categories. The fare recovery ratio of 37.4 and the all revenue recovery ratio of 44.2%, both finished significantly higher than last year, reflecting the positive impact of the service board fare increases on revenue. So the 37.4 that you see there is what we call, or we like to look at, as a pure recovery ratio. It just looks at fare and expenses. All revenue includes, obviously, the other revenue that the service boards produce, like concession revenue and other things like that. When you look at the certification of the year-to-date financial results through the fourth quarter, this slide displays the variances of each service board's operating deficit from budget. Each service board had a favorable result. The combined regional operating deficit was $51.2 million, or 3.3% favorable to budget. Accordingly, I recommend that the results of the operations of each service board and the region taken as a whole be found in substantial accordance with the adopted budget through the fourth quarter. Keep in mind these are unaudited results. If the final audited results differ materially from what we presented today, we will inform the board. And the certification is sent to a number of government agencies, including the governor's office and a number of other state agencies in a formal process. That concludes our remarks. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Bea. The good news, I guess, at looking at the closeout of 2018, unaudited, as you said, is that the recovery ratio was met, and it was met by all the boards doing a good job in holding their expenses down, and certainly in the case of Metro, actually achieving greater revenue through their recent fare increases or past fare increases. So that was certainly the good news, because we started out the 2019 budget with a real challenge as far as the fare box recovery ratio. So knowing that we're ending 1% above what we had projected for last year is hopeful that we'll do all right in 19.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, that is a negotiated, process, and of course the service boards, especially given, all of the issues related to funding, they're concerned about, over projecting, I guess, the recovery ratio. But they all exceed it, and they all, if you look at their individual recovery ratios, CTA exactly met it, but Metro exceeded it by 3%, 3.4%. Pace is actually now tracking, and Director Colson, if you recall, you always used to raise why it was always the 10 or the 30, so they are actually tracking it more accurately. Well, they always tracked it, but they're reporting it out. So they're reporting out, the 3.3%, for example. So they're 0.5% over. So I think, it's just maybe they're a bit timid about, when we negotiate through their process, but they do exceed it. So it's good because it gives us some comfort level. And as we look at their controlling their expenses, and they did all increase fares last year. So here we are, at least 1% above.
Correct. Yes, Director Lewis.
I agree with the chairman that the performance has been great. I know we had a lot of pressure on the recovery ratio, and it seems like the service boards have all done a great job. I know one of the slides you put in there specifically for myself, and I think for Director Hobson, was the one on the fuel prices. And I was trying to look at that. I know there was a lot of initiatives that were put in place to be more efficient on fuel, and I think if I recall correctly, only the CTA, which had done a forward purchase, ended up with a favorable result there. The others seem to have not made their budget. Given some of the work, I know Pace did the gas bus initiative, and I know Metro got more fuel-efficient vehicles. Is there anything that we should be looking at there relative to that particular statistic and the actions that were taken in the past?
So the good news is that for 2019, Metro locked in 80% of their fuel costs. So I think we will see an improvement there. They just didn't find the fuel prices favorable enough, or at least Pace and Metro in 2018, they just didn't feel they should lock them in. Now, in retrospect, perhaps they should have, but Metro is locked in 80% of their fuel in 2019, so we should see at least more predictability in terms of their expenses and their budget.
The efficiency that they, I know with the gas buses for Pace and the newer locomotives for Metro, they are realizing those efficiencies, are they not?
So their compressed natural gas, the CNG buses, are now fully rolled out, and they're tracking that. We will get some more information from them as to how they're doing. But yes, they are seeing some efficiencies in that area. But they were offset by the increase in fuel prices. So it's one of those things, that you saw how 7% of our revenues are coming from the increased, of our economic trends. And so you see some of those benefits that we get as part of our sales tax, but yet it also affects us on what we're paying for sales tax. So it's one of those things.
Thank you. Any other questions? Director Colson.
B, I was struck by one of your charts that indicated a pretty substantial amount of non-fare revenues. Can you tell us, again, maybe in a little more detail, what are the non-fare revenues, and is that an opportunity maybe to expand that?
Is it Pace? Well, non-fare revenues could be concession revenues, could be lease of space, it could be sale of properties, it could be all kinds of things. So we'd have to look at specifically what's in that one. Which one was it? Do you recall? Let's go back to that.
Looked like a pretty substantial number.
I think it was on the recovery ratio.
Was it Pace?
Oh.
For some reason, or Metro. Let's go back. With credits.
I think looking at all revenue and fare revenue is pretty substantial.
The jump from fare revenue to all revenue takes into account that ancillary revenue, advertising, leasing, investment income. I think leasing of space is probably the largest
one,
contributor there. We'd have to check on that.
I refer to it as concessions, but yes, it's leasing.
Okay, thank you.
And for Pace, large jump there. I just happen to know they do receive contributions from local governments for specific services. Those are allowed to be counted as operating revenue because they support specific services. So that's, for Pace, that's probably their largest contributor.
And while you're on this chart, that 37.4%, as I was mentioning to the chairman earlier, that's basically what the rider's paying. And I always feel that the fact that they pay $9 for a fare and they think, wow, that's a lot of money, we still ought to be trying to show on the ticket how much that a ride is actually costing that they're not paying for, so they get a value for it, especially when we are faced with raising fares. They can see the proportionate share that they're paying versus the amount that's coming in from the advertising, and even beyond that, the credits that we get for various things, which is as interesting as the revenue.
And that's at a regional level. If you look at the individuals, you'll see that the fare that they're paying by service board is actually significantly varied.
Yeah, it'd be nice to show that on the ticket. But anyway, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, could we have a motion to approve? Motion by Director Lewis, second by Director Melvin. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Colson? Yes. Director Groven? Yes. Director Holt? Yes. Director Kotel?
Aye.
Director Lewis?
Yes.
Director Melvin?
Yes.
Director Troiani?
Aye.
Director McGallis?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Any other items to come before the committee? If not, a motion to adjourn. Oh, motion by Director Groven, second by Director Lewis. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. The committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I will call this monthly meeting of the Regional Transportation Authority to order. And let's begin, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance.